Welcome to That Moto Show. DirtBikeTV's Jay Clark and producer Donnie Bales.
Okay, welcome to That Moto Show. This is episode number 2, and we are a tech podcast, is what we're kind of trying to do, and stay with what I know the most. I get a lot of questions from guys, and if you want to ask your own questions, you simply email me. You can do that off of our site easily, Linktree, all that kind of stuff. You can email me. It's pretty easy to figure that out. So if you email us, we'll answer your questions, and we have a bunch of questions ready to go this time. Donnie Bales is producing this, and he's raised up the production level for this show, which is really nice. We got some better lighting. We're working on little things. So what do you think, Donnie?
Yeah. I love the first show. It was a lot of fun, and I'm only upping the production level because you made me.
Okay. From what I understand, that first episode was seen by 1.2 million people.
Wow.
Yeah, there's no fact checking going on here, just like in the political situation. So we don't have to worry about that. But anyway, it was a good time, and I've gotten a lot of good comments. I already got a few of the questions today are from people replying back with that. So that part's pretty cool. So people seem to like it. So we'll kind of keep doing this as long as people think it's cool.
Yeah, sounds good.
So and if this should come out before Christmas, so everybody, Merry Christmas. All right, Donnie. You get us going with some questions.
Yeah, all right. We got some here for sure. Austin Gray wants to know where to trail ride.
But you didn't get all the question.
Well, I said where to trail ride, and he says Utah.
In Utah. So I get that question a lot. And one of the best ways that Spencer and I got started trail riding in Utah was there's a website out there called DirtBikeUtah.net. And the guy, David, is the guy that runs it. He's a great guy. And he also sells Thumper Jockey helmet lights and bike lights. He has different lighting, which is cool if you go to his site. He's got some good setups there. But he's done an amazing job of going all around Utah and making some great in-depth notes. He has videos. He has coordinates. He has routes. This is the best way. If you're going to come out to Utah to visit, and it's broken up into mountains, which would be late June, early July through the fall, mountain riding, and then he's breaking out, and then he's got desert riding, which would be central, Moab down to St. George. He's got all that stuff broken out, and he does a great job. And that's how we started figuring out Utah, was simply through his site, and that's how we got started. So if you're going to ride in Utah, you check out that site for sure.
Yeah, that is definitely some of the best stuff I've ever been in my life.
Donnie's gone on a couple trips with us to Utah, more in the central. We went to Moab area, Green River, and the last one was that Swing Arm City, and then down in St. George as well, in Tokerville. Just amazing stuff.
It's unparalleled for sure. Derek B, any chance you know where I can get an RC valve front cable holder for my 04 CR125R?
Okay, so on these older bikes, a lot of guys are fixing up these older two-strokes, say in the mid-90s to mid-2000s. There's a lot of stuff that's just not available. It's kind of surprising, but a cable for the RC valve on those bikes, and then the holder, those little things like that are becoming very difficult to find. So here's the tips on how to find those products. First thing you do is find the part number. Put the part number into Google with Honda behind it and search, and chances are many times it can come up on eBay. So that's the first place you're going to do, is look at it and see if you can find it on eBay, find the part that way. The other thing you can do is give that part number to your Honda shop. If they're on Lightspeed, they can check if any dealers throughout the country maybe have it hidden away. I just bought a needle for a KX 125 that way. I bought it from a shop in New Jersey. A needle, and it's on the way to me. I just bought it the other day, paid full price. I was like, okay, but no other needle for a 2000 KX 125 with that needle, and so that's how I found it. Buzz at ECC looked it up for me, and he sent me this shop with their phone number. I called them up, and they had it, and they were real nice and got it. It's on the way. So
that's a nice thing about the Moto community. Everybody really does want to help.
Yeah. So, and they could have upcharged me. I mean, if I've had that happen. I've had some shops. I've done this a few times, and some shops have helped me out. It's been really cool getting those old parts like that. So that's what I would do to first try that. And then beyond that, then you got to start looking for guys on, Marketplace or Craigslist, looking for guys that are parting out a whole bike. That's what you end up having to do.
All right. The next one is actually more of a comment, and now you're getting a little direction from some people. Speed Toad said, Clark, please slow down. You talk too fast.
Okay, we get that a lot, but both of us are pretty busy, right?
Yeah.
So we're just in here getting it done. So what I suggest is he listens to the podcast and listens to it at 0.75. It'll slow down, and he can just listen to it. Because I don't think I'm going to slow down.
What was it on records? It was 33 speed and then 24.
So there's a few podcasts and things that I have listened to, like where they're talking slow. Ping was doing one, and they were talking a little slow, so I put it on 1.25, and it wasn't quite chipmunk speed, but it was pretty good, and it helped out. So Speed Toad can just, he can listen to this on the podcast, however he does, which, we're on all the platforms now, so he can listen to it there, slow us down, and we'll be good.
You have a tendency to want to do everything on an abridged version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anthony E., what's the word on Honda releasing a new two-stroke? Any idea when? Thanks. Love the show.
Okay. Well, thanks for the good words. That's really cool. Unfortunately, I wrote him back on this. This was actually today because he commented on the show from last week. And so, unfortunately, I don't see Honda making any two-strokes. I think when a company of that magnitude puts a line in the sand that says, we're not making two-strokes, I don't see them going back on that. And that was in 2007, was the last Honda two-stroke that I'm aware of, at least in the United States, right? So I'm not aware of anything. And with Honda, you have to remember, it's a global company, and they sell way more Honda Accords and Civics and lawnmowers and lawn equipment than anybody else, right? Like than any other dirt bike company, right?
Oh, yeah.
They don't really, I think, to go and think about making 2000 CR125s or whatever, or 250s, they're just like, So unfortunately, I think that ship has sailed. I do not think we will see any companies make two-strokes that aren't already making them right now.
Who was that guy that put like the KTM 250 into a Honda frame or something?
Oh yeah, my guy John Murray back in Mass. That's how he's solving the problem. He loves Hondas. He wants to see that two-stroke engine in a Honda, and so we had a fun time with that build. And it was actually a way better bike than we anticipated. Dirt Bike loved it, so it was cool.
Yeah, it threw me off when I first saw it. Kevin D was wondering what the best and long-lasting tire for a 13 KTM SXF 450, 30-plus novice class at Glen Helen.
At Glen Helen, okay. So here's I get tire questions a lot because obviously I work with Dunlop, so I get a lot of tire questions. And like, unfortunately, there is no magic tire that's going to last long and perform extremely well, okay? You have to pick one or the other, typically, or make a compromise. And so Dunlop's gone about it by making an intermediate tire, which would be MX-33, and now they have the new MX-34, which is taking over. So that's kind of the target where it's going to perform the best and last the longest. And if you want something that lasts longer, like a condition like that, where it's going to be hard pack and soft, would be an MX-53. Now, we run an MX-14 rear at Glen Helen and a 34 or 33 front, but that 14 rear, it's really good at Glen Helen where it's got sandy sections. Today I was out there and just really pulls up the hill and works well. So what I tell guys is if there's any way you can find a good used wheel, rear wheel, front tire you're fine, is to have an extra wheel if you can. And a lot of times you can find, and with KTMs, they're the same from like 2000 to now. You can make the wheels work just with different spacers, so off of any of the bikes. So I tell guys, get an extra wheel, even if it's an 18-inch wheel, totally fine. Get an extra wheel so you can have your choice of tires, and that'll help you get that performance and have tires last longer.
Well, Glen Helen can be funny though, because in the morning you can have more traction and it doesn't feel like there's a bottom to it, but as the afternoon comes, there's definitely a bottom.
Right,
to it.
and but at least at Glen Helen, there's always a place, a berm or something you can get out to, a section. So that's what's nice. But that's where, when it gets those hard pack sections, you want to have that intermediate tire to get through there. And I don't ride past noon, as you know, so that solves the problem.
When I go with my weekend buddies, they ride all day. Greg W. wants a full combo on Mousse tubes, tubeless, steering stabilizers, and best mounting for a GoPro.
Okay, so first, on our website, if you go to the tires, on our YouTube, if you go to the tire playlist, tire changing playlist, we do have and in our Google Doc, we have a conversation where I talk about the pros and cons of all these different types of tire setups. He wants to know if you should run a tube, a Mousse, or a tubeless, right? And for me, we run tubes 90% of the time, and we have run some Mousses off-road on the rear just to feel a little safer, and it gives you a little more cush. For us, a good quality heavy-duty tube, which it's in our Google Doc, we can send you, there's links to it. You can get a good quality tube installed well, will last extremely well. The tubeless setups, we've had some problems where guys we've ridden with, they're putting slime in there, having to put what do you call that, plugs in the tire. Kind of a hassle and a lot more work. Most of the Baja tours won't let guys ride with a tubeless setup. They're like, you got to run Mousses, that's it. And so Mousses to me are most important if you are going really remote, you don't want to risk any chance of a flat, or if you're racing, or in Baja. So those kind of three things. So you're remote, Baja.
I got a dumb question.
Yeah.
First, I've never ever ridden on a Mousse.
Okay.
Do they make a front Mousse?
Yes, and so front Mousses, the downside of those is most guys leave them in way too long and they get really soft. You feel like you're riding on a flat tire when you hop on a guy's bike that's got a way too old a Mousse. So with Mousses, one of the downsides is they do take a lot of work to stay on them. Guys that really know Mousses and are good at it, they can change them fast, and they will actually cut a section of the Mousse out, make it bigger, and cut a little 3 or 4 inch piece and stuff it in there, and then put it back together, and it'll last them another weekend.
What are the balls? What are the...
Yeah, so there's companies now making those, and that's kind of the same concept, is they can do that, and as they break down, they get a little smaller, they can go take it off, put a new tire on, and stuff another one in there, and make it more taut, and make it, like adding pressure basically to the tire.
Yeah.
So the advantage of a Mousse is you're not going to get a flat. If you don't take care of it, and you need to be riding often, it can't just sit in your garage for 3 or 4 months, unridden. All the Mousse lube that's in there, all that stuff's running down. It's going to be dry. It's going to just come off. A lot of times it'll just come off the bead, and so that's not good. So our preference is a tube or a Mousse, and go from there. As far as stabilizers go, we don't run them because we don't ride enough high-speed stuff to really matter. We stay away from a lot of that high-speed stuff, but there's some good ones out there. We've used Scott's over the years. I saw another one on Trevor Stewart's bike today, riding concepts or racing concepts. Something really cool-looking one. It actually mounts to the bar instead of the triple clamp. It came up, and it was really cool the way set up. So, but if you're riding a high-speed desert or off-road, could be a good option for you. What was the last thing he was asking about after?
He wanted to know the best mounting for a GoPro.
I think it's on the chin myself, because which is tough. But extreme wannabes, and they're kind of getting out of it because it's not a huge business for them. But on my helmet, we'll actually have a 3D printed mount that sits on the helmet, and these things are awesome. And you can put the GoPro leaned back at a nice angle, and you can do it vertical for the Instagram or turn it horizontal from there. Sometimes on top of the helmet, sometimes you're seeing too much visor, and you don't get enough of the rider and bars. This way I have it, you get bars and plenty of track out front. I really like that view from the chin.
Have you know how they the AMA outlawed them running it on the helmet?
Right.
I saw because TLD is sponsored by them, they run them. They cut a hole in the number plate. They run them behind the number plate.
Right, and that view is not as great as being on the rider, right? The rider's kind of a better view than the bike, I feel like.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Unfortunately, and there's probably some wisdom in that. It's as far as racing at a high level, the helmet's not designed. The reason the AMA does that is they don't want a guy taking a hit. And I heard that was part of what Schumacher's problem was when he crashed on the snow skiing. Yeah, that he hit a tree, and that could have been part of the problem. We don't know for sure, but yeah,
sure.
Unfortunately, that can happen.
Yeah. All right. Unknown has a question about the throttle housing. So one side of the housing has a small piece that runs up the bar. It looks like an extra support to me. It's getting in the way of mounting my hand guards. Not sure if it's important or if I can cut it off. Okay, I'd run it by you first.
Okay, so I remember this guy, and Unknown was actually the name on his email.
Oh, nice.
Unknown. So it's like, that's pretty cool.
I like that.
Unknown. Okay, so what he's talking about is I think it's mainly just Hondas. On the throttle housing, it'll have a little piece about 3/4 to an inch long sticking out. What that piece is for, what Honda has it for, is so that you can butt your brake up, your front brake against it. It has the proper distance. That's the distance they've determined is like a good stock distance. And so that just helps people set up their front brake to there. You can break it off real easy. It's cast. We've even just put a screwdriver under there and just popped it off. It breaks off. Or you can pull it off and cut it and grind it off right there. Totally fine. And so if you have one of those on a Honda, which would be even, I think those have been on up until they've gotten a starter button over there.
Yeah.
So, all the older Hondas, you can just break that off, and it'll help you put your hand guards on. Totally okay to
do. You remember that other sport I used to run?
Yeah, Supermoto.
Had to cut them off.
Right.
We cut them off every time on the.
So you could put those hand shields on.
That's it.
You would run those little hand shields.
Never even noticed it.
Yeah. All right. What's our next one?
Okay. Mitchell J.
Okay.
Says, "Hey brother, really appreciate what you're doing on your channel and your Instagram. It's a huge help for the normal working dudes." He said he just picked up a 24 250 SXF, the first Austrian bike coming from a Yamaha. And I've seen all this stuff on the plastic oil pump gears breaking, but also saw mixed opinion on if it was being fixed on the 23 and 24. Figured I'd ask you first.
Okay, so first of all, congrats on a new bike, right?
Yeah,
so it's always nice getting a new bike, and that's a great bike. And coming from the Yamahas, and once there's some pros and cons to the Austrian bikes, and we have plenty of them. But the engines themselves are so dang good. But there is little sporadic things like this oil pump gear, plastic gear, that would warp and get a little bit funny. And once it failed or had a problem, it would actually warp and turn up, and there'd be pieces of that gear would clog up the oil pump, and then it would seize up the engine. So terrible. But as far as this by 21 or so, late 21 range, all the bikes came with the updated gear and no problem since. And in 23, that new generation motor, it's totally different. Zero chance of problems on the new generation. Now we've had those bikes, I haven't heard of a single problem with anything oil pump related on the 23-24 engine at all. So great bike. I don't think you'll have any problem.
Going back to my last deal, when I was riding Supermoto, I don't know if you remember, I had one break on me and it blew up the bike.
I don't remember that.
You fixed it.
Okay.
But it blew up because it just ground off one spot of that plastic gear, and it was a Honda.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was
not just KTM.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff can happen, but as far as that new generation bike, that new generation engine, which we love on the 250, 350, you'll have no problems.
All right. Brandon B, he says, "Hey Jay, I saw your podcast and I have a question. I bought a 19 CRF 450 RWE 2 years ago. I'm assuming not new, right?
Right.
Maybe 21.
Yeah.
And he says it didn't have the Works Edition clamps or factory tubes, the nitrate coated ones. I believe the triple clamps and forks are off 23 CRF 250. And he is concerned about the geometry on the bike and if it's affecting the way it works. He says he does have the stock shock.
Okay, so whenever you buy a used bike and somebody's hodgepodge or move stuff around, if it's within the same brand, 90% of the time it's going to be just fine as far as fitment. So you want to check those triple clamps. One of the first things I would do is with the forks off, make sure the triple clamps are sealing correctly and there's no play within the bearings. If they've used the correct races to go with those stem bearings, everything's good in there. When you snug it up, you don't have any play, everything feels good. There's a proper distance above the top nut when you tighten it up, that everything feels good. The next thing is those forks are not set up for a 450. So what I would do is take the shock and forks to your suspension guy and have them set them up for that 450s. And you'd be a lot better and safer to get going forward.
What are those 20 or 22s? The offset on those?
I'm not even sure.
I don't know.
On the new bike what they are, but you would get the same offset the 250, and the 250 uses the same frame, so I don't think there's much of a problem.
Yeah, all right. Good. AG Squires, hey Jay, does the rim lock go under or over the tire strip? And on my CRF 450R, which hole does the valve stem go in and the rim lock go in?
Okay, so first question is, let's talk about that rim lock. On a Honda, they have a big hole for the valve stem. And the reason for that is they give you a rubber piece to go over the valve stem to allow the valve stem to be able to move, okay? And then, I've had guys, first of all, we never take the rim lock off when we change a tire. And that the only reason the rim lock gets put on the wrong hole is because somebody takes it off when they're changing a tire. But you don't need to do that. I would simply leave the rim lock on when you change your tires, and we have tons of tire changing videos, of course. So I would leave the rim lock on and simply leave it in the small hole. So the rim lock goes in the smaller hole of the two. And then as far as the band, the rubber strap goes over the rim lock when you have a rubber strap. Now, if you have just tape, obviously it just goes right over the top of it and you don't have a strap going over the back of it.
How often do you leave the rubber if it's on there compared to taping the wheel?
Because I'm being lazy, I leave it on because I do so many tires and everything. If it was my own wheels, I would tape them. 1 or 2 laps of Gorilla Tape and leave the strap on.
And I know what it's for, but why is the strap there and why are you taping?
Okay, so it's to keep junk from getting in, water and dirt getting in the spoke area can actually get into the tire and get in between the spokes. Okay, then also your tube can't rub on the heads of the spoke nipples right there. It'll rub on there and there can be a little nick. And most of the time it's going to be okay, but a lot of times there could be a little metal, nick, and it would wear a hole in the tube and be done.
Yeah, I've also seen, you work the the spoke in, it will poke the tube as well.
Oh yeah, exactly. You can go all the way through if if you had a longer diameter there.
Yeah.
Length.
Hunter M. got a question about making the suspension a bit stiffer on my 2024 KLX 230R. Looking for some inverted fork triple clamp setup. Also wanted to get your thoughts on an FMF pipe, maybe to see how that works, either a slip-on or a full system.
Okay, so sometimes I'm a dream crusher, okay, and this is one of those cases where I'm a dream crusher. That bike,
Sometimes?
Yeah.
Sometimes? Okay.
KLX 230, right?
Yeah.
This would be like a TTR 230 or a KT, Honda has these 150Fs. These are what I call play bikes or beginner bikes. These are great bikes. I don't want to get anybody confused to think that I don't think they're good bikes. But they are very good bikes if they stay stock and leave them as they are, or you could just add springs to the stock stuff. That's all I would do. To mess with triple clamps and trying to fit other forks, I just feel like you're throwing a bunch of money, and as Donnie says, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze, right? Like
That's right.
It's a lot of work and money and time. I would keep that bike closer to stock. It's going to be easier to sell. You're going to get better money for it when you're done. You're not going to thrash it, and then just use that for a while you're learning and beginning, or your girlfriend or wife is riding it, your kids, and then buy something bigger and better that's designed for what you want to do with it. So
It could literally be the same cost to set that up as the bike.
yeah, you could have so much money into it if you do it right, and then you have a bike that's still not optimal for the track or trail. That you'd be better off with a larger regular, like an XCF or a CRF or whatever it is.
Right.
All right.
Hey, well, why don't we take a break and go over the product spotlight we have here?
So one of the things we're going to do in every show is focus on two products. And today, in my UPS, showed up this radiator. This is for our CRF 450 RX 24, and ICW did a really cool thing for us. We wanted to add a fan to this bike, but there was no fans available. So now if you're listening to this in the podcast, you can't see it, but ICW strengthens up radiators. They put some gussets in and some bars to strengthen up the radiator. They weld it all up, and they're out of North Carolina. But I did find out that Tusk has a universal fan. And the downside to it is when you buy their fan, they suggest you have these little bands that go through the radiator. You poke them through, and I had a reader, a follower, who wrote me about the same bike, and he rigged his up, and I just didn't feel good about, because we're going to ride this thing on the track and trail, and I want this thing solid mounted. So what ICW did, which was really cool, is they welded on these tabs, 2 tabs, and I could put in these 6mm inserts like Honda, the same thing has been for years, on like holding the radiator shroud on to the lower radiator mount. You would have these little 6mm hex tabs that would go in here, and this thing just fits on here so nice. So Brett at ICW welded this thing on here, and what we did is when we mocked it up on the bike and kind of marked with a Sharpie and I shot a little video that I sent him of how I wanted this thing to fit on here, and as you can see, it fits up here really nicely, just like this. So pretty cool setup. I'm pretty happy with this. What do you think, Donnie?
Yeah, I actually like it. I love seeing like that kind of cut. I really like when those little things, I go back to when bikes were like full-blown factory bikes, and that little kind of thing makes me feel like it's a full work setup.
Yeah, so really cool setup. And with this thing, we can still set the temperature, and this thing's going to be ridden in some kind of gnarly off-road conditions this winter and spring. So I want to make sure that this thing is able to cool down, and Spencer's going to be on this thing, and like I said, in the tight stuff, we could be overheating this thing, so it's going to be nice to have this radiator fan on here. And remember, if you're going to shop through Rocky Mountain, like say Tusk or anything you're shopping, if you go to our links, it'll be in the description of this video on there, or if you can go to our website, you can click on Shop Rocky Mountain, and you can click through there, and we get a tiny little thing, which is nice to help us be able to afford this lavish studio, right?
Did you say how much that fan was?
I think it was like under $100. It was cheap. I can't remember totally, but it wasn't very much.
Right.
And maybe $129. I can't remember. But anyway, it wasn't too bad for what you get.
What do you think that like the optimum temperature for a lot of bikes?
So we're going to set this probably around 180 range.
Okay. Yeah.
And if it's coming on too much, we might have to go to 190, because we don't. The problem is this bike doesn't make a ton of power,
And it's going to kill the battery.
Yeah, it's going to kill the battery. So we have to watch that as well. So we'll be a little careful on that. So, but a great setup. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. All right, what else you got?
Well, I think let's get back to a few more questions.
More questions.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. Tegan M. Obviously, he's looking at your current projects you have going on right now. How did you guys get your CR250 tanks back to white?
Okay, so we cheated and just got new ones from Clark Manufacturing. They make stock size replicas. The white is a little bit off, but it's pretty dang good. I'm pretty happy with them. And Decal Works is going to do our graphics anyway, so I'm real happy with those Clark tanks on those bikes. Come out pretty nice. To try and buff and clean on those 30-year-old tanks would just be a nightmare.
Yeah, you could be forever trying to get those going.
Yeah.
All right. Luke P. Hey, Jay, my stem bearings have gotten stiff and notchy after 10 hours of use on my new bike. I'm pretty sure I've seen you installing an improved water dust cover on YZ on Instagram. I was wondering what that part was, and can I upgrade mine to prevent this problem?
Okay, yes. Carbon Solutions, the one that made that little cool cover. It has an O-ring to seal that thing. So they 3D printed that thing. A really cool piece. Again, I go back to, if you buy these brand new bikes, you need to grease up your stock bearings. Yeah, I know you did on your new bike, and on basically every brand, they're not greased sufficiently brand new. And you shouldn't have a bike with 10 hours that this happens to, but it happens, unfortunately. So I suggest that you, on a brand new bike, take that stuff apart. Don't put more than a couple hours on it. If you're eager to ride it, do it, but otherwise, do it straight away.
Yeah, and this is a universal problem. It's not like one brand or whatever. It depends on if the bike was built on a Friday or a Wednesday.
Right, and now some brands are more susceptible to getting water in there. Like I know those Yamahas, we seem to see a little bit more problems there. But as far as the grease that comes on them stock, they all kind of suck.
Well, also, what you preach is once you're washing the bikes to really blow that area off really good, and that will help that as well.
Right. So we have a good, that brings up a good point, Ron. We have a good bike washing video on our YouTube you can go to find. And because it's not just about washing the bike. You want to get it in the shop, you want to blow that thing off. All the electronics, all those bearing areas, we blow that stuff off, and that makes a huge difference in how long things are going to last. Guys think of just washing and power washing and they're done and they put it away wet. Man, you got to blow off the chain, blow off all those key components it'll help a ton and the longevity of the bike.
For sure. On both my bikes, recent bikes, I maybe less than a half hour and then they were both torn down. Yeah. All right. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. I'm not even going to try, but.
Oh, get us close. You can spell it for us. Come on, Donnie.
Abutolib?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Good job.
Good. Hey, Jay, I hope you and the rest of the family are doing fine. Any thoughts that I'm not aware of on lowering the seat height of a WR450F besides custom seat and a Duval dog bone? We've already done those. Sorry to say that my brother-in-law lost control last week at a very low speed, and as a result, he had multiple foot fractures.
Oof. And how long did he say? Didn't he put it years?
Yeah, he said, at first he thinks that the bike being lower would have probably prevented this. And he's 57, his brother-in-law, and it's the first injury in 17 years of riding.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm wondering if he started riding at 42, which I'm happy about.
Right. But either way, here's a couple thoughts that go to my head. Is first of all, if I could make a deal and only get hurt every 17 years, I'd probably do it.
Right.
All right. That's the sad reality. Okay, we're doing something that's dangerous.
It's not if, it's when.
Yeah. So unfortunately, if I could make a deal with the devil, as they say, and I could go 17 years between serious injuries, I'd probably, unfortunately, sign up. So because this stuff happens. Now, would the lower bike have saved him? I'm kind of thinking not. Okay. What is just being comfortable in your riding conditions and practicing more. I'm guessing a lot of guys that get hurt like this and have that thought or logic aren't riding enough. So one of the things that helps you is riding more, getting better at it, being more skilled. When I'm off the bike or not at the track or trail for a long time, man, I'm not at home, so I think, and that's also a good reason you could pitch your wife or girlfriend on that you need to ride more, is because it's safer the more you ride. Now, people will look at it like the more I ride, the higher chance I have of getting hurt, right? But that's not the case, because this is a little bit of a skill thing and mindset. So you can say, hey, Jay said I need to ride more.
Yeah.
To help prevent these things. And so I'm not a big fan also of lowering bikes unless you're like 5'4". So people ask how tall I am, and I used to be 5'7", and I'm a little smaller than that now because of all the crashes. So I get guys riding me wanting to lower bikes, and they're like 5'9", and I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it totally changed the geometry of the bike.
Yeah, they weren't designed for that.
Yeah.
And we've tried lower seats. That gets weird because it's really tough to shape the seat. The seats nowadays there's not much there. So if you cut them down, then it's really wide where your legs and knees are rubbing. They feel awkward. So I'm not a huge fan of lowering bikes unless you really have to.
Yeah. Being in better shape helps a little bit too.
Right.
So a couple of things, it doesn't hurt as hard when you fall.
Right.
And also, you're more flexible.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Parker D. Hey, Jay, longtime fan. Thank you for all the helpful videos you make. I have a 23 CRF 250R and is just looking to get a little bit more power out of it. I currently don't have the money for a full exhaust system, but I've heard removing the backfire screen and drilling holes in the side panel with the extra airflow might help.
Yes. So yes, for sure, especially on 250s and even 350s, but 250s for sure, they all want more air. These things are a little bit corked up. So if you can get a little bit more air to them, and especially this Honda wants more air, that generation bike. The 450 can as well, but it doesn't need them more power like the 250 does. So there's plenty of pictures online. If you Google, you'll see different areas to drill. And we did some on last year's bike. It made a big difference in that throttle response and initial hit. And then removing the backfire screen is an easy little quarter horsepower difference. We've dynoed them over the years, and it does make a difference. It is a little bit better. Again, if you're not doing something stupid and your bike's running fine, you're not going to backfire and blow up the bike by any means.
Would you get an ECU? We talked about this last week, but would you get an ECU before you'd get an exhaust?
Yes, in most cases. On most bikes, yes. So
In this bike particular?
On that bike, that stock, I would probably do the ECU and then do the pipe, the slip-on, the FMF, yeah.
All right, sounds good. Kenny, from Kenny. Howdy, Jay, which I like how he's, maybe he's a cowboy.
He's from the South.
South, yeah. Just curious on how long you can expect the battery to last on these bikes.
And I think these bikes, I think he's referring to KTMs, but I'm not sure. But maybe just the newer bikes with lithium batteries. One of the problems with these new batteries, we are seeing some freak instances. I just lost a battery last week that I'm going to test. I'm going to do a load test on. I just saw a video from Tokyo Off-Road showing how to do that because I had a battery and it charged. I put it on a lithium charger, which I actually mentioned in the last show. Put it on a lithium charger, charged it up, and it's showing like 12.8 volts. It's showing strong, but I'm not trusting to put it back in the bike. I put a new battery, Tufts battery back in the bike, so I'm using that right now. So one of the things with these batteries is they can go 2 or 3, 4 years if they're well maintained, which means they need to be ridden quite often, and there's different procedures. You don't want to wear that battery down. Once it gets worn down a couple times, it kind of is over. But if you don't wear them down, they do fine. And so if you live in a cold weather area, I would probably take them out of the bike for winter, and you can put them on a lithium charger off and on during your winter time. That's what I would do, unless you're going to plan on starting the bike once a month or so and letting it run for a while to charge up. I've heard it can take up to 3 minutes of running to actually charge up the damage you did or wearing it out from starting. So you need to let it run a little bit if you're going to do that to maintain that battery. But these lithium batteries are pretty dang good. They are light. They definitely are not going to last as long as a lead acid battery that's 3 times as.
And these batteries these bikes aren't really charging the battery, right? I mean, they're just kind of maintaining and just a little above.
Little charge, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not much.
So they do last well. I like them, and but when they go, they just go. Like not much warning typically. There's a lot with the lead acid battery, sometimes you'll get it's slow. Usually it just goes away, and you can't get nothing.
I keep a battery pack in my van.
A little jumper.
Jumper, yeah.
Yeah, those are great to have. Yeah.
We could have used it on my Grom the other day.
We had to bump start his Grom at Glen Helen when we were shooting some bikes the other day.
Actually let it sit too long, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The gas smelled like it too. So that's a whole other topic. You need to drain your gas out.
We got to keep going on that.
All right.
Richard L. has a 23 Gas MC 250F and he was wondering if anybody had a lower compression for it. He says, I understand the stock is 14:1 and he mainly uses it for trail riding and the engine has too much engine braking. And he ends up using the clutch a lot. He changed the computer, which has been helpful, and he understands, I don't know, he's saying fuel air is 17-1.
Yeah.
But still, it's too much performance for him.
So if a bike, and I'm surprised on a 250 he's feeling that, but that bike needs an ECU to accomplish what he's talking about. He doesn't have to change anything internally in the engine. He doesn't need to put a lower compression piston in. I believe with a well-mapped ECU from like Jamie at Twisted, which I'm like a broken record, right? But with an ECU like that, he could put in a setting with little to no engine braking and less hit, real smooth hit, and he would give you a few different choices if you describe that. And yes, it's kind of expensive, but that's to me, spending $700 or $800 is way better than tearing into an engine to put a piston in, to me. So that's what I would rather do. And so an ECU can be set up specifically for what you're looking for in those cases. That's what I'd recommend.
All right, that was the last question, actually.
Oh man, we just plowed through that.
Plowed through them, yeah.
Okay, so let's do product number 2.
Product number 2, there we go.
Right, valve shim kits. And so this is new from Ventco. The owner of Ventco, I've known Kurt for a long time, great guy, and he made up a new shim kit that has 4 sizes in each. And this one right here is, this is, which size do we have here? Oh, 7.48. So these would be like most of the 250Fs. The Yamaha 250Fs run a 9.48. So if you're ever going to adjust your valves on whatever bike, you need to have one of these kits before you start. This is a great value, so you have all the correct sizes. Your other option, if you're going to adjust valves, is that you measure everything and then you go to your dealer and pick up the right ones, which they won't have in stock. So then you're going to have to order them and come switch them out. So you want a kit like this if you're going to be doing any, more than 1 or 2 bikes, you want a valve shim kit, and you want to get probably the 7.48, 9.48 for all the Japanese bikes, and then there's sizes for the KTM as well. I don't know. I think right now all Ventco has is the Japanese sizes right now. So great product to go along with our other great product we talked about today. So that's about it, man, for episode 2. And remember to send me those questions. You can email us. Donnie, what do you got to end us out? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I started my first one off last week with favorite bikes, but this is kind of, you've kind of carved yourself out a niche in this industry, and you always hear people, even friends of mine are always talking about, how do I get in the motorcycle industry? And I kind of want you to answer the question of, should you get into the motorcycle industry, or should you just enjoy riding your bike?
Okay, so, and you and I have talked about this, and I did ask Donnie on the H show to give me a question. He goes, do you want to know what it is? And I go, no. Just surprise me with it. I do like, because the tech questions, I've seen all those, and I've answered. I don't want to make people wait to get their answer to their questions, so we're just going to answer them as soon as you email it in. But a lot of the questions we're getting in email, we figured other people would have that same question as eventually or whatever. So that's why we're answering those questions. So as far as in this industry, I've had a few different ranges. You can try to talk people out of working in this industry, and they're willing to do it. I mean, back in the day, the popular race teams in the 90s, the mechanics were making $18,000 to $19,000. Okay, and I'm sure you've heard of those teams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're you could afford to maybe make a tiny truck payment and live at home. With that.
These guys were driving across the country
to get that job.
To get that job.
Right. And we're not going to name which teams, but we know which ones. And then that pay for mechanics is getting better. But as far as the actual industry, one of my problems is that a lot of my friends who've worked in the industry, they get into it and they work in the industry and they work there for a while, and then they stop riding dirt bikes. They hate dirt bikes after a while because they work with it day in and day out. They end up not riding at the track because
you don't see a mailman walking on his day off.
That's exactly right. So you don't see a mailman walking on his day off. So these guys are used to working on dirt bikes all week long. They don't want to be around dirt bikes. They get sick of it. Now, how do I avoid that? Is my deal's a lot different. I've been able to work from home for 30 years, and I've been able to stay actively riding and excited about it, and riding moto and moving to trails over the last few years, getting more into some trail riding as well. But I still enjoy it and have not let it fall away. I think once guys let it fall away, they lose the passion. And so I tell a lot of guys, unless you find a really good situation within the industry, or maybe you're going to give it a few years. You're going to give it a few years to work in the industry as a mechanic or whatever it is, and then parlay that into something else and work towards another job. Those good paying jobs are tough to find. And so most of the guys that are happy and in the industry do it because they love it. And a lot of times their wife has a good job, so they have a dual income, they're able to pull it off. And that's the guys that I've seen that are pretty happy, staying within the industry. Unless you own your own company or, become a top mechanic for one of the fastest 450 guys, or you become a team manager, it's going to be tough to make a long-term living.
Well, not to be a bummer either, but this is an entertainment industry,
Right.
and that as economy goes, it can squeeze jobs out as it goes.
And a lot of the jobs being in Southern California, it's tough. Like, who can afford to nowadays? I couldn't afford to come back as a 25-year-old or whatever, come live in California, or 20-year-old or whatever, come live in California without being in a place with 3 roommates or whatever, right? So it's a tough situation. So you have these jobs, and they're out here in Southern California, and it's tough to make a good living. So I tell guys, I was helping my own son, I'd say, hey, let's try to look outside the industry, find other avenues to where, and also if you can be a bit self-employed, there's some good guys doing photo and video, but that's pretty competitive, right? There's a lot of good guys doing it.
It's very competitive.
Donnie knows because he does a good job at these, and he's not fighting over these guys, and there's guys willing to do something for half or less than half of what he's willing to do it for, so he lets them do it. So, I'm mixed on it, as far as what to tell people. But overall, I tell people, if you can make a good living outside of this industry and have a path to whether it's being moving up in management at whatever company you're going to go do, or own your own company, do those things, I say do that, and you can buy your own dirt bikes and ride on the weekends. You're going to have a good time.
Yeah, think if you're at your job right now, right? We're not talking about, kids getting right out of the house right now, but think if you're at your job right now, if you want to do that on the weekend.
Right. And so, yeah, if you're a mechanic, or if you're whatever job you're doing, right, you're a HVAC guy, right, on the weekend you don't want to do that. And that's what happens to a lot of moto guys, is they're working on bikes all week or whatever, they're a team guy or whatever, and they get sick of it. So it happens, and I've seen it happen over and over. And the majority of mechanics, especially mechanics, don't ride anymore. And then the majority of just guys in the industry, a lot of them don't ride. And one of the funny things is why guys don't ride, I think, is a lot of ego too. They're around all these cool fast guys, and that's one thing I've not cared, that hey, I'm not that fast. Who cares, right? Like, there's no, so I don't care that out there, Glenn, I'm getting passed by a lot of fast guys today, but who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. And
I looked at our lap times the other day. I'm not kidding you. They were like 4,000ths off.
So he had a GoPro. I said, check the GoPro lap to see how close we were in lap times.
You were faster by 4,000.
All right, so not much.
Not much.
All right, and those were I think on my 250F I'm faster.
Okay,
So,
all right.
I do need to spend some time. I got to spend more time on this 350. It's going to take me a while to get comfortable doing long.
This is the best bike I've ever ridden in my entire.
It's incredible. So Donnie and I both have two 350. We have a new video coming out soon with those two 350s, right? My red one and your orange
and
one.
the better colored ones.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
So anyway, does that help you out on the?
Yeah, that's tough. That's good.
I do get that question a lot from guys, especially younger guys. And it's tough to be encouraging to them.
Well, also, you've done something completely different where you basically have carved out your own niche, and that's also going to be very tough because how many of those can you carve out?
Right. It's a limited area, and there's been lots of people, I think, who've come in the last 10 or 15 years who've tried to do a lot of what I do.
I know 2 specific people that tried, and they're not doing it anymore.
Well, and so it's tough, and I've been real blessed to be able to do it, and I'm grateful for it, and I got some great people like you, and that help me on stuff, and got some good friends, and that's been a huge help. So it's pretty nice to be able to do this, do what you love for so long. So I wish I had better word, tell you guys, get it, jump in. But I'd hate to mislead somebody. I guess that's what it is.
I think it's nice to be realistic.
Yeah.
Just, it doesn't help anybody by not.
And if you look at a job for whatever company and you see that it's going to start at this and you're going to apply, you're going to get this, you have to assume that the most it's going to take you 5 years to get a 10% over that. Like, that's the way this industry works, right? And that's the way most things are right now, unfortunately. So it's going to take a long time to progress without, moving to other companies, which can be difficult as well.
I've actually noticed, because, I'm friends with somebody that owns a dealership.
Yeah.
I've actually noticed that pay at dealerships is better than it used to be.
It is. I have a good friend, too, who's doing parts, and he's at a parts at a dealership. He's been there a couple years. He's moved right up, and he's kind of managing a certain area. He's doing well.
I think we're talking about the same dealership.
Yeah, no, this is a different one.
Oh,
yeah, this one's south. You guys north.
Oh, yeah.
So
okay.
and he's doing really well there. So I've been happy seeing him, and he enjoys it.
Yeah.
So I think they're realizing that having a good parts guy, and I think that gets us into a whole other topic of, with the like Rocky Mountains of the world doing so well as of late, right? It's just easier. So dealerships have realized if we want to compete, we need to have good parts guys who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
The days of having a guy there who just doesn't know anything and orders the wrong part. You know how frustrated you were when you went in to pick up your part and it was the wrong one?
Yeah.
Because you just wanted to turn the computer around and go, hey, let me look it up. I'll show you what it is.
Yeah.
Like you wanted to go. So having a good parts guy is awesome.
But I know people that are making a living at dealership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
So that I didn't think about that. I was thinking of just the industry within California.
No, I was too. But then when I was like, well,
Yeah.
if you want to be part of something, you could even be locally. You know.
And you could carve out something, and then that could grow into something else where you get yourself at a certain thing, and who knows? There's actually some good jobs being sales reps and DMs for like KTM or Honda, whoever, throughout the country in your region and stuff.
Yeah, that usually comes from a dealership, though.
Right.
So
Yeah. So
that's all I got, man.
all right, cool. Well, it's been really fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy. We're going to try to keep doing this and try to have them a couple times a month. I'm happy that everybody's enjoying it. Again, send us those questions if you have them, and we'll see you on the tracker trail soon. We work with some great companies, and here's a list of those right now. Dunlop Motorcycle Tires, Wiseco Piston, Vinco Air Shocks and Dirt Bike Parts, FMF Exhaust, Decal Works Graphics, Pro X Racing Parts, Recluse Clutch Revolution, Motion Pro Specialty Motorcycle Tools, Works Connection, Uni Filter, Klotz Oil, Cometic Gasket, MX Plastics, JE Pistons, Cardo Systems, ODI Bars and Grips. And remember, if you shop Rocky Mountain, use our link from our site, Linktree, or link in description of the videos. Thanks for watching and listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and